Welcome back, and many thanks for staying with us on the #1 breakfast show in the country. We are talking about the race for the deputy speakership in the 11th Parliament. Gombe County West MP Robinah Rwakoojo expressed ambition to run for the office for the deputy speaker of the 11th Parliament in May this year. That's when we shall be having those elections. But in April, we shall be seeing the campaigns for the same. She joins a couple of other MPs who already announced their bid. But why has this position attracted a lot of interest? 14 MPs vying for that position. Honorable Rwakoojo joins me right now on set. Very good morning.
Good morning.
All right, the first question the viewer would like to know, why is there too much interest in the deputy position, a deputy speaker position right now?
Well, all I can think of is the fact that a deputy speaker, as much as a speaker, is elected from amongst Parliament's own, very own. And in order to be a member of Parliament, you must have 3 basic qualifications. First of all, you should be a citizen of Uganda. Secondly, you're a registered voter. And third, you should be having the A-level academic qualification or its equivalent. Now, any member of Parliament that has been sworn in can vie for the position of Speaker or Deputy Speaker, but right now we're talking about Deputy Speaker. I believe people in Parliament, or the members of Parliament, are ambitious. They realize that they can participate in leadership, and they look at themselves and realize that they are qualified to stand for the post of Deputy Speaker. Personally speaking about it, looking at Deputy Speaker, I realize that I have various qualifications because, you see, the members of Parliament that we have are directly elected members of Parliament. These are the ones who handle constituencies, like I am. Then we have the district women or the city women members of Parliament. We have the special interest groups that include the army, the people with disability, the workers, and these are all members of Parliament, you know. So from amongst all those, and then of course, amongst all those, you have all those being able to participate as people who can come in as deputy speakers. However, when you look at it, we can all be, let me give an analogy of medicine.
Go ahead.
You may all be surgeons, but not every surgeon will perform a good operation.
Indeed.
We have realized that in the past, the last like 4 parliaments or so, 5, 6, 85% of the speakers and deputy speakers have been lawyers. The chief duty of a member of Parliament is to legislate. And there's no better person than a lawyer to do that. Now, when you look at the experience that I have, it is super when it comes to that, because I fit in very well in that jigsaw puzzle. I worked in government in the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs for 25.5 years before I went to Parliament. That's where I began my work career. And I rose up the ranks, starting from pupil state attorney, which position is no longer offered. And we used to do probation for 2 years. At the time, I was in the Administrator General's Department. And then I went on to become a state attorney. We were then confirmed after 2 years of induction, of probation. Later on, I then became a senior state attorney, then a principal state attorney, and then a commissioner, civil litigation, line ministries. And while as a commissioner, I acted as director civil litigation for 7 years. So I went through the departments of Administrator General, Directorate of Legal Advisory Services. I also went into the Directorate of Civil Litigation, and that's where I ended. I was a member of the Law Council. So I can safely say it's only the Registrar General's Department really that I didn't serve in. I found as an all-rounder. And there are many things that we would do at that time.
Indeed.
many other duties that would perform. So getting on to Parliament, because I left the ministry in July of 2015. Now I get to Parliament, and in my first term, which we are finishing in May, I get into leadership. So I'm given the vice chairpersonship of the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee. I think that was a show of confidence. In addition, I was chairing the select committee that investigated sexual violence in institutions of learning in Uganda. Now, thereafter, I then became the vice chairperson of the Equal Opportunities Committee, and that is what I'm still doing right now. I was also a member of the Appointments Committee. Now, when you chair those various committees, it's like a mini parliament. The rules that govern the operations of the committee are the same that govern the operations of the House.
So inadvertently you're getting the experience that you
need. Yeah, you do. And as you know, those committees are the ones which feed the plenary, because in the morning we sit in those committee meetings, and then those committee meetings feed the plenary. So I believe that my academic and work experience, together with the leadership experience that I have got in Parliament, and with the watchful eye that I have had as I debate on the floor of the House, have all formed ingredients that I can use to bake that cake that you'd call the Deputy Speakership.
Amazing analogy. Yeah. Let's go back to the position of the Central Executive Committee. In 2016, they came out and said, Deputy Speaker, or Jacob Oulanyah, leave way for the Speaker, that is Rebecca Kadaga, to continue being Speaker of the August House. That's what happened. So we did not see a tussle between Jacob Oulanyah and Rebecca Kadaga after her first term. So she's exhausting her 10 years in Parliament. Is that right? So what happened was the SEC told Jacob Oulanyah to stand aside and let Rebecca Kadaga continue as Speaker. And fast forward, in 2021, the Speaker is now coming out to say, well, I'm not going to be stepping aside for the Deputy Speaker, Jacob Oulanyah. I'm going to continue. So what if the SEC committee comes out and says, you know what, the Speaker of Parliament, Rebecca Kadaga, should remain. We should maintain the status quo. She should remain Speaker. And the Deputy Speaker, Jacob Oulanyah, we should also maintain the status quo. He should remain the Deputy Speaker this time around. What would you do next? What would be your next course of action as Robinah Rwakoojo if the SEC committee says they are maintaining the status quo of Speaker and Deputy Speaker, that is Rebecca Kadaga and Jacob Oulanyah respectively?
Well, first of all, what I can say is that I came to talk about myself, yes, and my bid for Deputy Speaker. So I really wouldn't want to involve myself in talking about the position of Speaker and what happened.
No, you're talking about the position of SEC.
Yes, but I want to acknowledge that we are in a multi-party dispensation, and in a multi-party dispensation, you have political parties, and political parties have caucuses. And those caucuses are the avenues that the members use to discuss issues and to agree upon issues.
Indeed.
So if you came up to have a situation where you find you are for party unity coming up to propose, because I mean, if you're more than one candidate, only one can win, you know. So if there's guidance from your party as to who is the party favorite in terms of taking up that position,
I see.
I don't think there would be any problem with listening to advice of, because it's a caucus that will sit and advise. And
it also means the organs in the NRM are strong and they are working.
Yes, and when you look at it, the members of the ruling party really are normally the majority.
Indeed.
Now you get to Parliament and your party has advised, you know, that it would be good that you should let so-and-so take the position. In this case, I believe they would be advising the rest. Let Robinah take this position because she sounds to be, you know, she seems to be the most appropriate candidate.
Indeed.
Now you get there and you say, no, I'm not doing that. I'll still continue to participate. And the members are like, you know, for us, we're looking at party unity. We have analyzed. It won't be for nothing that they'll say. You have qualifications, they are looked at.
Yes.
You're given a chance to talk, you know, and to express your strengths and why you think you should be the rightful candidate. And because of party cohesion, you come up to say, okay, let's have so-and-so compete.
Indeed.
Because you're going to be elected by all members of parliament. Now, if you get there and you're squabbling, you're likely to lose it.
Indeed.
You know? Yes. Yeah, so you must also look at it wisely.
Honorable Rwakoojo, it also appears there is huge competition for the Deputy Speaker title. Is this because there are few positions where the NRM, where competition in the NRM is allowed?
I don't think so. I just think that people have become more politically aware.
I see.
And they want to participate in leadership. Like I told you, it's open to many, you know. Any member of parliament can become a deputy speaker. But is any member of parliament that wants to become a deputy speaker really fit to be a deputy speaker?
Indeed.
We have looked at who has been a deputy speaker in the past, the qualifications, because I mean, it's legislation that you're doing in really, in the main, it's legislation that you're doing. Who would lead the House better than an experienced lawyer? Someone who has been in leadership of the committees of parliament, somebody who understands legal issues, you know? I think it's rather obvious.
It's rather obvious that is Honorable Robinah Rwakoojo. She is actually the MP for Gomba West County, and we're actually expounding more on the race for the deputy speakership that is in May when legislators actually get sworn in. I would like to know your assessment of the 10th Parliament. This is your second time that you'll be making your way to Parliament, but we would like to get to know your assessment of the quality of debate in the 10th Parliament. What is your comment on that?
Well, the quality of... I have never been a parliamentarian. This is my first time. I have read through Hansard's though, and I think the 10th Parliament, I can't say did badly as such, but we could have done better.
In what
That's
areas?
what I think. In the areas of debating. Because what I realize is that we're all from different academic and social backgrounds. You come to Parliament, and you find your chief duty is to legislate, and there are other things that you do in Parliament because we pass the budget, the national budget. We lobby for our constituents, yeah, but we also monitor government programs and what. But while we are in Parliament, we are considering policy statements in our committees. We're looking at bills, and we're trying to legislate. So you find that it is not something that everybody knows when they come. And therefore, we have to be put at par. And this is done during induction. But it's such a short time. And it's at the very beginning. People are tired, they're excited, there's so much that's happening, you know. People have gone through maybe a rigorous election. And so I think that we need like some refresher training.
Indeed.
We need to capacity build the MPs and come up with better debates, because you have two Bibles, the Constitution and the Rules of Procedure of Parliament. Now, when you're submitting in Parliament, you really ought to tell us which rule you're proceeding under and what. Sometimes we don't do that. And if you're put to task at times, like the Speaker says, under which rule are you proceeding? You see members fumbling sometimes and what. It should be that it just comes, you know.
Instantaneous.
But there's no way it can do that without you receiving that training. And the only way to do it is to continue capacity building the stuff. It really helps us. I would want that X years from now, somebody looks at the Hansard and realizes that the quality of members of Parliament that we had was excellent.
Speaking of the quality of the debate, Honorable Rwakoojo, Robinah, many parliaments all over the world during the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic focused on coronavirus relief bills. We saw parliamentarians debate how best they can come up with laws or relief plans for populations that were being grappling hardest in the coronavirus pandemic. We didn't see any of this take center stage in the Ugandan parliament, except other shenanigans that took center stage. Do you think the quality of debate should actually be centered around people-centered discussions?
No, I don't think you're being fair to the parliament. First of all, the way Corona hit us, it was shocking to all of us. Nobody knew what Corona was or what its effects would be. And it just came in, and I remember everything, almost everything closing down in March of last year. Parliament was no exception. We stopped sitting in the House. Actually, there was a debate as to whether we should continue or not, but eventually that's how we found ourselves in the tent. Now, things moved on so fast, but we were trying to get back to our constituencies to see what we could do. But thankfully, although Parliament legislates, the ministers can also do statutory instruments. So because there are acts or statutes, and then the subsidiary legislation, those are the statutory instruments. And those were done by the ministries. Like the Minister of Health, I know, did some of them, and that actually facilitated the process. So there wasn't a gap as such. We didn't have a major one that was supposed to come from Parliament, but there were activities that we were doing that actually facilitated the process during COVID, like passing the budget so that equipment could be bought, and
I'm not really talking about equipment being bought and so forth, aiding health workers. I'm talking about businesses that were collapsing, and we saw other governments elsewhere in the world calling on their particular governments to come in and help. We saw coronavirus relief bills being passed, packages being passed on how best to help the local private sector that was grappling, individual businessmen to be helped in that regard. We didn't see any of that take center stage in our parliament. Quality of debate.
What I said was, it was difficult for us, and if I remember well, there were also pronunciations by His Excellency. And these are the ones which came in to actually relieve the businessmen and what. So it would actually have been duplicity, because for the legislation, there were statutory instruments that were done. For the course that business was taking and the relief that was being got, His Excellency was making pronunciations. So, yeah.
Okay, Honorable Rwakoojo, as Deputy Speaker, do you think every member of Parliament should be allowed to speak? Or should we follow the suggestion of Chief Whips selecting who should be speaking within the August House? What do you think? If you ever become Deputy Speaker.
No, when I become.
Yes.
I believe
Yes.
every member of Parliament has a right to talk. But of course, with increasing numbers, it would be wise if, like we do when we have matters of national importance, for one to come up to register and say they want to talk about this and the other. Otherwise, you may never get an opportunity. But everybody should talk when they want to talk. And there are times you may not have, if you went by the system you were talking about, you may not have intended that you should talk, but you're provoked by a member because we raise points of procedure, we raise points of order, we raise points of information.
And you want to make an addition.
Yes, the thing is for the Speaker to be able to regulate and to see who to choose and how to do it. Yeah.
All right, Honorable Rwakoojo Robinah, she is the Gomba West County MP in that regard, and she's also vying for the Deputy Speakership position. We have campaigns that will be taking center stage in April and the subsequent elections in May after the swearing in of this new slew of incoming MPs in that regard. And we wish you all the best, Honorable Rwakoojo.
Thank you very much.
Indeed. And of course, you're still watching Morning at NTV. I also have Sarah Birete. She is the Executive Director, Center for Constitutional Governance, and also we do have John Tumwebaze. He's actually the Kampala is a partner with Kampala Associated Advocates. We are going to be talking about the drama within the Supreme Court. Justice Esther Chitimbo Chisache's dissenting ruling. She says there is no way President Museveni being a respondent in that case and also having the appointing powers to actually appoint the Chief of Defense Forces. And she says there's no way President Museveni couldn't have known that Robert Kyagulanyi was under house arrest, something that she says made it impossible for Robert Kyagulanyi to actually adduce enough evidence within the Supreme Court.